Abbas pledges at the UN to work with President Trump and keep powers on Gaza peace plan. President Trump says the Gaza war deal could be close after talks with Turkey's Erdogan. And Zelensky says he is ready to meet Putin anywhere but Moscow as Russia names Istanbul for talks. You're watching Q News at 8 with me, Henny Saif, and in the news today, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas pledged at the UN to work with President Donald Trump and keep powers on a Gaza peace plan backed by the General Assembly. Abbas said he will coordinate with the United States, Saudi Arabia, France and the United Nations on implementing a plan aimed at ending the Gaza war and advancing a two-state solution. The 193-member General Assembly overwhelmingly endorsed the 7-page declaration earlier this month, signaling broad international support for renewed peace efforts between Israel and the Palestinians after nearly 2 years of conflict. President Donald Trump said a deal to end the Gaza war could be close as he met Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan at the White House. Speaking alongside Erdogan, Trump said he plans to meet with Israeli officials and expressed hope for a breakthrough to halt the conflict. "I think we can get that one done," he said, adding that securing release of hostages remains a key priority. The remarks came as diplomatic efforts intensify to end the nearly 2-year war, which has caused widespread devastation and heavy civilian casualties.
I would say you have 4 or 5 real leaders that are being good. As you know, I met with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE.
Activists in Athens held a news conference after an international aid flotilla bound for Gaza was attacked by drones, vowing to continue their mission to break Israel's blockade despite the assault. The global Sumud flotilla, made up of about 50 civilian boats carrying lawyers and activists, including Greta Thunberg, says drones dropped stun grenades and itching powder as they sailed in international waters off Crete. The ships, now regrouped near Crete, are expected to reach Gaza in the coming days. Activists condemned the attack but vowed not to stop their mission, calling it the largest effort yet to challenge Israel's naval blockade. Spain has deployed its Navy vessel Furor from Cartagena to join Italy in supporting the global Sumud flotilla's aid mission to Gaza. The decision marks a rare coordinated European move at sea, as Madrid and Rome align in offering naval backing to the civilian flotilla. Spain's deployment follows Italy's dispatch of a frigate a day earlier and signals growing political weight behind efforts to challenge Israel's blockade. The 2 NATO allies are expected to monitor the flotilla's passage closely as it nears Gaza in the coming days. Italy has dispatched a second Navy vessel to support the Gaza Aid flotilla, with Defense Minister Guido Crosetto warning activists against breaching Israeli territorial waters. Crosetto told Parliament the additional ship is ready for any eventuality, as the flotilla, still sailing in Greek waters, reported renewed drone activity overnight. He urged activists to accept Italy's proposal to hand over aid for distribution by the Catholic Church in Gaza, warning their safety cannot be guaranteed if they enter foreign waters. Spain has also committed a warship as European involvement in the mission deepens amid Israeli warnings. Gazans have voiced cautious optimism that new international recognition of the state of Palestine could help end the war, urging world powers to match words with action. On the streets of Gaza, residents call the diplomatic momentum a rare ray of hope amid relentless Israeli military operations. Many urge that recognition must lead to real steps to halt the violence and ease civilian suffering. Displaced Palestinians said the move could mark the beginning of the end of the conflict if more nations follow suit and push for peace, turning symbolic gestures into concrete change on the ground. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to condemn recent recognitions of a Palestinian state in his UN address ahead of talks with U.S. President Donald Trump. Before departing for New York, Netanyahu reiterated his rejection of Palestinian statehood recognition, pledging to denounce decisions by countries like France and Britain at the UN General Assembly. He will also meet President Trump in Washington. Both leaders have sharply criticized the recognitions as the war in Gaza nears its second year, drawing global outrage over its heavy toll. More than 65,000 Palestinians killed, according to local health authorities. And for more on this, we now move to Rana Al-Assas in our newsroom. Rana.
Thank you so much, Hania. And for further analysis, we're joined by the International Relations Specialist, Dr. Mohammed Osman from Cairo. Welcome to Qnews, sir. Sir, how significant is Mahmoud Abbas's pledge to work with President Trump and major powers on a Gaza peace plan? And can it realistically lead to a breakthrough after nearly 2 years of war?
Thank you for having me. It seems that the Palestinian President is eager to engage constructively and positively with President Trump's latest initiative with regards to the ceasefire and the cessation of hostilities and the eventual settlement of Gaza. It seems that the Arab economic leaders who attended this high-level meeting with President Trump on the margins of the UN General Assembly have stressed the necessity of involving the Palestinian Authority in governing Gaza in the post-war period. And it seems that the United States is not opposed to the idea, so it seems. We have not seen any sources indicating that President Trump has made any reservations with regards to that. So President Abbas is upping the ante and continuing to push forward in that direction, hoping that the Palestinian Authority will be a part of the conversation and eventually a part of the process in post-war Gaza. Of course, all of this is very premature, as you very well know, Rana, because actually we cannot really assess the seriousness of Trump's initiative as of yet. I think we might see the initial indicators of whether this will actually succeed and whether Trump will honor his pledges with regards to actually going forward with the ending of the Gaza war when he meets with Netanyahu in a few days, this Monday. Maybe then we will know exactly where the entire situation is heading. If President Trump exercises pressure on Israel in order for them to engage positively as well with this initiative, maybe we might see some positive results, which is something we have not seen for a while. If he doesn't, of course, then this will all be empty talk.
Sir, what does the overwhelming General Assembly backing of the peace declaration mean for Israel's international isolation, especially amidst Netanyahu's rejection of Palestinian statehood?
Of course, no one can deny the significance of the impact of the wide, the tsunami or the torrent of recognition that erupted as of late, which is basically isolating Israel, at least figuratively, as things stand. What's happening right now is a PR crisis for Israel. Israel is losing the sympathies of the Western world, and Palestine is gaining more and more grounds within the collective West, and especially in Europe, when countries like France, for example, and even Canada and Australia go ahead and recognize the state of Palestine despite the strategic relationships with Israel. Of course, this signifies that Israel is losing the PR battle and is losing the battle for the hearts and minds of the world. However, of course, even though this is a PR crisis and even though this might project a sense of Israeli isolation, it's not necessarily reflective of the true state of affairs, because Israel will only be isolated if sanctions are imposed. We have seen some positive signs with President Macron pledging to impose sanctions or vowing to impose sanctions on Israel if this war continues eventually. This, of course, it's not unprecedented. He made these threats before. If he is willing to follow up his words with action, and actually the Europeans will impose some sort of sanction of Israel, then Israel will actually be isolated. I think that the chances of this happening, even though they are still slim, but they are definitely larger than they were before. So I think that this is something that we should observe diligently in the coming days and weeks.
Sir, how could the global Smooth flotilla and European naval support from Spain and Italy reshape the debate over Israel's blockade and international law at sea?
Of course, we should not blow this out of proportion. If we have heard what the Italian defense minister said today, it reveals the true extent of the involvement of Spain and Italy in securing the flotilla of Al-Sumud, because basically this flotilla, which is composed of a few dozen ships and boats, moved into the Gaza Strip, hoping to break the siege and present our Gaza with more humanitarian aid, of course, with the sheer symbolism this carries, of course. At this point, the Italian defense minister was telling them not to violate or enter Israeli territorial waters. And of course, Israeli territorial waters include the waters of the Gaza Strip, since the Gaza Strip, under international law, is occupied by the State of Israel. So the territorial waters of Gaza are under the suzerainty and the military protection of the Israeli occupation. If you go and try to violate or intercede of Gaza, these Italian, maybe even Spanish naval vessels will not provide you with the needed cover. The cover, of course, is to prevent the Israelis from targeting the flotilla or the vessels in the flotilla in international waters, as was the case last time. Last time, the vessel was targeted and intercepted Navy and special forces in international waters. Yes, Rana.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, yeah, that was my point. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, with over 65,000 Palestinians killed and Gaza devastated, how much pressure can mounting international recognition of a Palestinian state exert on Israel to change this course, sir?
Can you repeat the question when I didn't get that?
Of course, sir. With over 65,000 Palestinians killed and Gaza devastated, how much pressure can mounting international recognition of a Palestinian state exert on Israel to change course? And is it too late, sir?
If international recognition is not followed up by sanctions and punitive measures against Israel, then it will do nothing for the plight of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The issue of recognition is of great sheer symbolic significance. It is definitely a huge moral boost to the Palestinian cause. It does highlight and strengthen the legitimacy of the Palestinian rights. However, it does not go beyond that. Without concrete action on the ground, you can forget about alleviating the suffering of the people of Gaza. Pressure needs to be applied on Israel in the form of sanctions and punitive measures in order to force their hand down and make them more flexible and more responsive to the ceasefire initiatives and to the diplomatic efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, in their efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement that will secure the release of the detainees and the hostages, and also the withdrawal of the Israeli military from the Gaza Strip and the resumption of the peace process based on the two-state solution, which on the borders of June 4th, 1967. If this doesn't happen, if this doesn't transpire on the ground, then it will all be, again, empty talk.
That was the International Relations Specialist, Dr. Mohammed Osman from Cairo. Thank you for joining us on Q News, sir. And now we go back to Hani Saif in our studios. Hani?
Thank you, Rana. Israeli airstrikes hit Houthi military sites in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, after a drone from Yemen struck a hotel in Israel's Red Sea city of Eilat, injuring at least 20 people. The Israeli military said its strikes targeted the Houthi General Staff headquarters, security compounds and military camps in Sana'a south and west. The attacks came a day after Houthis claimed responsibility for a drone strike on Eilat, part of escalating cross-border hostilities linked to the Gaza war. The raid struck as Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi delivered a televised speech underscoring the deepening confrontation between Israel and the Yemen-based group. The Kremlin has said it still views U.S. President Donald Trump as committed to resolving the war in Ukraine, despite his recent remarks appearing to back Kiev's push to reclaim territory from Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that Moscow believes the Trump administration maintains the political will for peace talks and reiterated that Russia remains open to negotiations. Peskov also welcomed Trump's call for a global ban on biological weapons, calling the idea brilliant and saying Russia is ready to take part in formalizing such an initiative at the international level. Russia says it struck Ukraine's military power grid and drone sites at Kiev as Kiev reported successful attacks on oil and UAV facilities inside Russia. Moscow said its forces destroyed a key substation powering Ukraine's military industry, along with drone sites and troop positions, and are close to seizing a settlement in northern Donetsk. Ukraine's military claimed strikes on an oil refinery in Bashkortostan, pumping stations in Volgograd, and a UAV plant in Belgorod. President Zelensky proposed a potential meeting with President Putin in a neutral country, though the Kremlin dismissed the idea without prior preparation as a PR stunt. Ukrainian President Zelensky said he is ready to meet Vladimir Putin anywhere but Moscow, as Russia named Istanbul its preferred venue for potential talks. Speaking during a U.S. visit, Zelensky renewed calls for direct talks, while Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Putin is open to a meeting but warned that without preparation it would be a PR stunt. Kazakhstan also offered to host and facilitate negotiations, urging preliminary groundwork to build mutual understanding. Kiev has so far shown little interest in Moscow's proposal to create working groups ahead of high-level talks. President Vladimir Putin inaugurated the World Atomic Week Forum in Moscow, bringing together global leaders and nuclear industry officials. The annual event held from September 25th to the 28th at Moscow's All Russia Exhibition Center, focusing on the global nuclear sector and related fields. The IAEA chief, Rafael Grossi, and leaders from Belarus, Myanmar, and Armenia were among the attendees. Before the plenary session, Rosatom chief Alexei Likachev led a tour of the Atom Museum for visiting dignitaries. The Kremlin said Putin will also hold bilateral talks with foreign delegations during the forum. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called for stronger NATO deterrence against repeated Russian airspace incursions, vowing Berlin will not allow them to continue. Speaking alongside state governors, Merz backed NATO's tough stance after the alliance warned Moscow it would use all necessary military and non-military tools to defend itself. His remarks follow a series of drone and jet incursions across Europe, which officials see as part of a broader pattern of Russian hybrid disruption. Merz said NATO's unified response is absolutely right and essential to preventing further violations.
In den letzten Tagen mehrfach Stellung genommen zu den sehr ernstzunehmenden Vorfällen, die wir im NATO-Raum sehen, im Luftraum, aber auch im gesamten Seegebiet.
Turkey has deployed an AWACS surveillance aircraft to Lithuania as part of NATO security measures following repeated Russian drone incursions into European airspace. The temporary deployment, part of NATO's assurance measures, runs from September 22nd to the 25th and enhances detection of low-flying drones beyond ground radar range. It follows airspace violations reported by Lithuania, Estonia, Denmark and Poland, prompting the alliance to strengthen its eastern defenses. Western officials say Moscow is testing NATO's readiness. Turkey, NATO's second-largest military, maintains ties with Russia while supporting Ukraine and condemning the invasion. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan to the White House on Thursday for talks on U.S. sanctions and Ankara's blocked F-35 bid amid new alignment on Syria but sharp discord over Israel's war in Gaza. It's Erdogan's first White House visit in about 6 years. Ankara hopes the friendlier mood and mutual praise can ease US sanctions imposed in 2020 over Turkey's Russian S-400 purchase, opening a path back to Lockheed Martin's F-35 program. While Washington and Ankara now back Syria's central government, they remain far apart on Gaza, which Turkey calls genocide. Trump signaled optimism ahead of the meeting, saying he expects F-35 talks to conclude positively. Polish climber Andrzej Bargil became the first person to summit Mount Everest without oxygen and ski down to base camp. Bargil climbed from Camp 4 to Everest's 8,849-meter summit in over 16 hours before skiing down via the South Col to Camp 2, continuing the next day through the perilous Khumbu icefall to reach base camp. The 37-year-old, who first skied down K2 without oxygen in 2018, now holds a historic double, the only person to achieve full ski descents of both K2 and Everest without supplemental oxygen. The 2026 Guinness World Records book features a fresh lineup of quirky and impressive record breakers, from animals to athletes. UK based Derek earned the title of tallest living donkey at 167 centimeters, while his companion Bamboo took the record for the longest ears. In the US, Norbert the pig made history by skateboarding 10 meters in just 11.32 seconds. Other highlights include the world's longest banana car by British creator Steve Braithwaite and record-breaking performances by gymnast Nelly Heyman and Sierra Leone's Eddie John Brown. Australia's Nicole Gunrich set a female world record by lifting a 180 kilograms Atlas stone. The 2026 edition features 2,247 record achievements from around the globe. Hundreds gathered at Pretoria's Loftus Versfield Stadium at Heritage Day to attend the world's largest braai, aiming to beat the current record of 2,220 set in Japan. About 2,500 participants grilled simultaneously, celebrating unity and South African culture. The event also supports the Trek for Mandela 1 Million Meals campaign, which aims to fight hunger across the country. Guinness officials said verification of the record attempt will take a few days. Scientists at the University of Leicester are turning to an unusual ally in the fight against drug-resistant infections: zoo animals. Researchers are working with Dudley Zoo and West Midlands Safari Park to collect fecal samples from over 160 species, including giraffes, otters and snow leopards, in search of bacteriophages, viruses that infect and kill bacteria. So far, around 700 phages have been isolated from the samples, which are processed into lysates and tested against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The project, led by the Becky Mayer Center for Phage Research, aims to build a vast phage biobank for future medical use. And on this note, we come to the end of our news bulletin, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. Abbas pledges at the UN to work with President Trump and keep powers on Gaza peace plan. President Trump says Gaza war deal could be close after talks with Turkey's Erdogan. And Zelensky says he is ready to meet Putin anywhere but Moscow as Russia names Istanbul for talks. These are all the news we have for now, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. I'm Hani Saif, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.